The Comfortably Zoned Radio Network presents Weighted Donuts with your hosts Wayne Unger and Craig Stier.
Hi, and welcome to this week's show of Weighted Donuts. I'm Wayne Unger. I'm here with my co-host Craig Stier. With us we have Al, our trivia man. And in a minute, we're going to try to stump Al. We have a few questions. And tonight's guest is Marc Weiss. Marc, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Wayne. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Craig.
Okay.
Good to have you.
Okay. Al,
Yeah.
are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready as I'll ever be.
Okay.
Do you guys have a drum roll for Al or something like that?
No, unfortunately. Wait a second. Where'd the quit hit? All right. Name the two Philadelphia Phillies first basemen who made unpleasant headlines unrelated to baseball in 1949 and 1958. Do
First
you
one
know
was Eddie
that?
Lakers, who was shot by a woman named Ruth Steinhagen in Chicago because he had previously played for the Cubs. That was the basis of The Natural.
Yes.
And the other one was Ed Boucher, who was accused in 1958 of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl, and his card was pulled out of the 58 Top set because of that.
Bingo.
Yeah, Boucher.
Right on the money.
Boucher later played for 62 Mets.
So, okay. Now, got another one. What two major league teammates and fellow Okie natives disappeared for 3 days in 1962, and do you know their story?
These are the Red Sox?
These are the Red Sox.
Oh, that was Pumpsy Green and Gene Conley.
Yes.
They walked off a bus because the bus was stuck in traffic. They both got drunk and tried to go to Israel. And after they were shipped back, they asked Pumpsy Green refused. Conley wanted to go to Israel. And they asked Pumpsy why he didn't want to go to Israel. He said, I'm not Jewish.
I'm sure Gene wasn't
right on
either.
the money.
That's great.
They
Good.
they were in Yankee Stadium. The bus was stuck in traffic for
yes,
quite a
yes,
while. Yeah.
and they were actually refused to on the plane because they didn't have passports. They were at Idlewild Airport, which we now know as JFK. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why Israel? Why Israel, though?
Yeah, they didn't have any passports, so they were drunk.
Why Israel?
Well, who knows why?
Let me, you know what? Let me see if, let's see. And mostly, wait.
I don't know. I'm drunk.
Conley claimed he wanted to see Jerusalem. So that's all we got. All right, I got one last quick question for you. Now, those two questions were sent in by my buddy Rosario Salemi. So thank you, Rosario, if you listen to the show. We do appreciate it, and we hope you'll come back with more next week. And I got one last question. Who wore number 24 before Willie Mays?
On the Giants?
Yes.
Artie Wilson?
No, Jack McGuire.
Oh, that's really obtuse.
I know. I don't like these number questions either. I'm not good with numbers. But that was sent in by the Emperor of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network Empire, Mr. Ralph Tycho himself. Yes, that's who. So, hey, but Al, you were right on the money. You were right on the money. And,
as always.
Yes, and I thank you for coming on, particularly since we come on so late. And we'll see you back next week.
Okay, unless you want me to stay on for the discussion.
If you want to stay on,
you're more than welcome to.
Okay, what's the discussion?
Okay.
This is not.
Oh, we're talking. Well, it's a little bit. It's a little sad and morbid tonight. We're going to talk Jose Fernandez as well as we're going to discuss some others that have.
Yeah, maybe I can add something to this, so I'll stay on for a while.
Okay.
Absolutely.
See, I was going to ask Al if he knew who wore number 24 before Willie Mays with the Mets.
I'm not. The only numbers I'm really solid on are the Yankee numbers.
Gotcha.
Let's see. Do you know the answer to that one? Who wore 24 before on the Mets?
I do, and I would say it's a moderately obscure guy. That's for sure.
Give us a hint.
Played a little first base, mostly a pinch hitter. Played a little with the Cardinals. Journeyman type.
Wait. It wasn't. I'm trying to think. Was Jim Beecham there before or after?
Bingo. It was Jim Beecham.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then he switched to, I think, number 5 after Willie got there.
Yeah. I remember he was a single-digit guy.
The majors.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't a real single-digit guy, but he got a single digit.
Wow. Good one. Very good.
So there's Leak on the Cardinals, a pitcher who wears number 8. He's horrible.
So
I'll just have a guy with a single digit too.
Yeah.
So anyway, getting on. I tell you, when I first saw the news Sunday morning, actually somebody else had posted it, and the first thing I had to do is, because it was posted on Facebook, I had to make sure it wasn't a hoax. And as soon as, go to ESPN.com, and as soon as they confirmed it, it's like one of those things. It was the same thing when I got the news about Thurman Munson, and it's been the same, same news, actually, same reaction when I've gotten the news about people I actually knew over the years. You like shake your head, like, no, this can't be real. I mean, that was my immediate reaction. And, it's, I'm trying to think, like, if there was another baseball player, who went down, the closest that I can think of a ball player who died during their career, particularly during the season, who is like at such a peak, and he hadn't even reached his stride. The closest I can think of really is Lehman Bostock. I mean, granted, Roberto Clemente was a superstar and on his way to the Hall of Fame. Thurman Munson was a star, but he was, Clemente and Munson were both at the end of their careers. I can't think of anybody else, as far as like where they were with their careers, and how talented they were, that even compares to Jose Fernandez. So, any thoughts?
Bostock, definitely a tragedy. I think we talked about this the other day. I mean, he was mistaken for somebody else. I think we thought that he was mistaken for his uncle or someone's uncle, and he was in the back seat of the car, and somebody who was drunk or out of their mind thought that he was the guy cheating with his wife, and he shot him. And he was 27 years old, in the prime of his career, and boy, could that guy hit line drives.
His father was a prominent Negro League player. Lyman Bostock Sr. was a prominent Negro League player.
Wow.
How many years did he play in the Negro Leagues?
Quite a while.
Yeah,
I actually like 40.
No, he played. I'd say about 15 years or so. But I have to read.
No,
he was.
I think he played like in the 40s, maybe late 30s.
Yeah. He never was a candidate to come to the major leagues. He was too old by then.
And actually, I looked up the story of the shooting, and what it was is he had been eating at his uncle's house. They were playing in Chicago. He went to visit his uncle, and a woman who Bostock had tutored was there with a friend, and the friend was separated from her husband, and they were just driving the women home. And the woman who was separated from her husband, she had been known, the accusation is she was not a faithful wife. And the husband saw them leaving the house. He followed them, and they were stopped at a light somewhere. And the shotgun was actually was meant for the wife, but missed and hit Bostock in the head, and he died 2 hours later in a hospital. So he knew this woman exactly 20 minutes. So
tragic. And it was like 38 years ago, and it was like almost to the day to today. I think it was like a couple of days before or something like that. And it was at the end of
September 20. It was 78. He died September 24th.
Yeah.
And we also talked about this earlier. It was his first year. He had signed a nice free agent contract with the Angels. And he had a terrible April and wanted to give his money back. But the first thing he did when he signed the contract is he donated $10,000 to his church to build a new Sunday school. And so when Gene Autry refused to take his money back, he said that he was going to donate his April salary to charity, which he did. It took him a while, he had letters, he had all kinds of requests coming in, but he donated his April salary to charity. So, what can you say about a guy like that? And also, like, looking at his numbers, the year before he became a free agent, his batting line was .336, .389, .509. He was, double digits all along, doubles, triples, and home runs. And he only struck out 59 times. He walked 51 times, stole 16 bases. So you can imagine what kind of numbers that would get a 27-year-old man today in baseball.
It's just mind blowing. I mean, he was a pure talent. The guy hit pure line drives, and he was 27 years old. He was just about to step into his prime.
Yeah,
just amazing.
The thing about Jose Fernandez, the first thing that came to my mind is what the heck was he doing out on a speedboat at 3:00 in the morning?
I think that crossed everyone's mind.
What kind of visibility did he have?
Yeah. Well, you know what? A little more has come out. I don't know how accurate everything is, but I heard yesterday a little more has come out that he used to go out on a boat quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And the word I got was also he had an argument with his girlfriend, who is expecting a baby, I believe, in like 6 weeks, and he was out on the boat, and they don't know. Nothing's been confirmed as to whether or not they were drinking, but they were at a club, and they were going full speed. I mean, they didn't drown; they died from impact.
Yeah,
So,
I know that. Yeah.
And he wasn't driving the boat. The other guy was.
Well, they're not. They're actually not sure about that.
It reminded a number of people of the incident in 1993 when which Bobby O'Hare survived, and the other two pitchers on the Indians, Steve Olin and Nolan Cruz, were killed.
Yes, and that, and alcohol played a part in that.
Yeah.
But
that was in spring training.
Yeah.
Yes, they just don't know. They actually say they don't know who was driving. At first reports said that it wasn't his boat, then they said it was his boat, but he used to have his friends drive, but he had a license and and now they're saying he did drive his boat, but they don't know. I don't know what, at this point, you know what? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't. I put it in perspective. I think back to when I was 24 years old, 23, 24, 25, and I look back on it right now at the age of 51, and I think, how did I survive those years? And young people sometimes make poor decisions, and sometimes those poor decisions can end your life. And unfortunately, this is what happened. And baseball lost a rising star. They lost a guy who had all the talent in the world, and he was a great guy in the community. I told you, Wayne, that I have a friend who was, I won't say his mentor, but that he worked with him a lot while he was injured and coming back from surgery, and he raved about him and said that he was a Class A kid. He was so respectful. He actually used to go to my friend's his friend's son's Little League games and show up there and take the kids out and stuff like that. So, this was a guy who loved the game, and he really got it. But unfortunately, young people sometimes make poor decisions, and this is what happened. But he was just a good guy.
And he was very animated. He loved the game, and he was the kind of guy when, like, if a guy tagged him for a home run, he gave the guy a nod, like, yeah, you got me. But on the other hand, he would show emotion when he got big outs. The best thing that I see is that, you remember that unbelievable catch he made of that line drive? I forgot who hit it for Colorado, but he snatched it out of the air so fast and just put the ball down. It was almost like he hit the ball. And the batter from Colorado looked at him and you could see his lips go. He goes, "Did you catch that?" And you see Fernandez smiling, nodding his head. Yes, the guy didn't even know where the ball went. He was, the guy even asked him. He stepped out of the batter's box and he was looking "Did you catch that?" So, whereas in some regards to the game, somebody might get peeved as the guy's hot dogging, because he took it, he took it as well as he gave it out. His antics were actually very, were accepted. So, and, another guy, whenever something like this happens, one guy who never gets brought up is Ray Chapman. He was another guy, 29 years old. He was catcher for the Indians.
Shortstop.
And
he's a shortstop.
Oh, I'm sorry, he was a shortstop.
Yeah, shortstop, and Carl Mays threw sidearm. He was an underhand.
And the ball was all dirty and scuffed.
And it was getting
dark
at the Yankee Stadium. At the Polo Grounds. Yankee Stadium wasn't even built yet, and he was able to walk off the field, and he got a hemorrhage, and he died the next morning.
And I think they said the ball was dirty, scuffed, and it was really dark out.
Those days it was, yeah.
Wasn't that the year that they won the pennant and played the Dodgers in the series?
Yeah. Joe Sewell, who was in the Hall of Fame, replaced Chapman as shortstop, and they beat the Dodgers 5-2 in the World Series that year.
Yeah, and that was also actually toward the end of the year. Not quite September, but
it was in August.
It was in August.
Yeah. They brought Sewell up, and Sewell, of course, was a 300 hitter who never struck out. I mean, never. He struck out maybe 4 times a year.
Yeah, I mean, and Chapman was, when Chapman got hit at that time, he was hitting 303.
Yeah.
He had an on-base percentage of 380, and he was slugging 423, which was, not bad in that era. So, 29 years old. And, like I say, another guy like, in the peak of his career. So
here's another one.
Go ahead, Craig.
Here's a ball player who predates my time as a fan that I've read about. But Alan, I was wondering what you could add. Ken Hubbs.
Ken Hubbs was the regular second baseman for the Cubs in 1962 and 1963. He was National League Rookie of the Year in 1962. And he and a friend of his were flying somewhere, I think around Utah, in February of 1964, and the plane ran into bad weather. And that's what caused that crash.
Well, and there's a little more to it, actually, also. Hubbs was afraid of flying. And he, the reason, he decided to challenge this and get over this, he actually took flying lessons, okay, during the winter. And he had a pilot's license. So, it's just, again, I remember seeing and I could be wrong. I think it happened on a weekend, but I'm not sure. But I do, I remember seeing the headlines in the back pages of the Daily News, and I remember having his baseball card with the big gold Topps rookie thing on it. So
another one who got killed several years ago was a Yankee pitcher named Corey Lidle, who crashed the plane into a building in Manhattan on 72nd Street.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was bizarre.
Yeah. And
well, you guys brought up headlines, and I wanted to get your opinion on what you thought of the headline that came out this morning in Newsday after the Mets had beaten the Marlins. It said smooth sailing with sharp Noah. Now,
that's bad.
Could somebody have been that stupid to put that in there, or was this an oversight?
Yes, I think yes. The papers are out there to get circulation. I think on a tabloid level, I read
could a human being be that insensitive, and could an editor be that stupid to let it slide through?
Oh, possibly, yeah.
Wait. What was the headline again?
It was in today's Newsday in regards to the result of the Met game where the Mets had beaten the Marlins yesterday, and it said smooth sailing with sharp Noah. I have to think that was a direct shot at the whole situation and a very poor taste.
Yes, to say the least.
And I'm never one to ask for somebody's head or somebody to be fired, but I think anyone who could be that callous to put something like that in a newspaper, whoever approved it, should not be in that job.
Wow.
It's inflammatory.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I remember the guy who had the headline on ESPN. It was about 5 or 6 years ago when Jeremy Lin was playing for the Knicks, and he had a bad game against Houston, and they called it, and the headline said "chink in their armor," and he was gone. They let him go after he put that in there. And this is worse because we're 3 days after a young man passed away, it's not something to make fun of.
The one saving grace is that Newsday has fairly limited circulation.
I was going to say the saving grace is only 6 people in Nassau County actually read it, and it doesn't circulate to the 5 boroughs.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, they used to have a New York City edition. I don't even know if they do that anymore.
Because I remember they used to have a big billboard at Shea Stadium during like the 80s to like the early 90s, and then this rag just fell off the face of the earth. But if this is what they're putting out, I would never read it.
I tell you what, in the mid-late 70s through the mid-80s, they actually made a real strong push. They were a very viable paper in New York. I mean, originally they were from Long Island, and then they became very big in Queens, and then you were even able to find them on Manhattan newsstands. They had great sports.
You know who wrote for them? Tom Verducci wrote for them.
That's right.
Stan Isaacs.
Yes, Stan Isaacs.
And Marty Noble, who was the one who ghosted the worst baseball book of all time, Nails. He wrote for Newsday.
Oh. And wait, but that was Dykstra's first book.
It came out right after the 86 series, along with the 10,000 other bat books.
Yeah, I think Davy Johnson had one called Bats, and
Gary Carter came out with one. A whole slew of them. The only one that beat that out was 2004 Red Sox.
Now, do you remember the video they came out with? Let's Go Mets Go.
Yeah.
We got the dream work to make the team work.
Do you know that I was at Shea the day that they were working the crowd into it?
Oh,
God. It was just coincidence. I was there with my oldest son. It was like so corny. It was like, but most of the people were really into it. I was like, oh my God, just stick a fork in my eye instead, I lived in Queens. I lived in Ridgewood at the time, and my mother lived in Jackson Heights, where I grew up. I mean, I grew up a mile and a half from Shea Stadium, and even though I was a Yankee fan, I was at Shea, Shea to Yankee Stadium, at least 10-to-1 ratio. It was right there. It was convenient.
Yeah.
So we just happened to be at the game that day. So I can't remember what day it was. It was a weekend though. It definitely was a weekend. So I've never watched the video. Never looked for myself. Actually, never want to hear that song again. So
I find it on YouTube somewhere.
I can assure you, I'm not going to look for it. I promise. Yeah.
I can vouch for the fact that I have seen the video. I have probably not recovered from seeing it, and I don't recommend it for anyone else to see. But it is on YouTube.
Do you guys remember Don Wilson?
Oh, sure.
Houston pitcher.
He was a very good pitcher.
Gas in his car. He got carbon monoxide.
I think he threw a no-hitter too.
Yeah, he threw a no-hitter. Yeah, for the Houston Astros.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Going back, I mean, there was some, other guys that, well-known players, but we're going way back. Ed Delahanty.
Yeah.
It was toward the end of his career. He drowned.
He fell off a train. He was thrown off or jumped off a train.
Into a lake, I suppose.
Book that came out on him a bunch of years ago by Mike Soul called July 2nd, 1903, which is the date that he died. It goes
wait. The story is great. He was apparently kicked off of a train by the train's conductor for being drunk and disorderly.
Yeah.
and they said Delahanty was brandishing a straight razor and threatening passengers after he consumed 5 whiskeys. After being kicked off the train, he started his way across the International Bridge connecting Buffalo, New York with Fort Erie, and fell or jumped off the bridge. And by some accounts, they said he was yelling about death that night.
Yeah, the story was that he was with Washington at the time, and that was before basically before the league settled. And there's a lot of jumping back and forth, and I think it was settled. And he wanted to jump back to the National League to play for the Giants, and they settled the dispute, and everybody has to stay in place, and he was very PO'd that he had to stay with Washington. There's a lot. That was the American League, National League wars of that era.
Yeah. Another guy also before all our times, multiple 20-game winner, Addy Joss.
He died from TB.
TB, meningitis.
He died before the 1911 season. Yeah. And Ross Young, a big giant player in the 20s, died at the age of 30 from Bright's disease, which is kidney failure.
I found another one that just cracked me up. The guy's name was Len Konecki.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
That story,
if you know the story, please go ahead.
Okay, Len Konecki was an outfielder who I think he was with the Dodgers at the time, and he got into a plane and started a small plane. He went ballistic for some reason. And they had to kill him to prevent the other 3 people on the plane from getting killed by him.
Yeah. The pilot hit him in the head with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to go to Jerusalem.
There's a trend here.
Well, who I believe Josh Gibson was active when he died too.
Yeah, he had I think a brain hemorrhage.
Yeah, he had a stroke and a brain hemorrhage. And then
another big one was Harry Aganis, who was the first baseman with the Red Sox in 1955, who was an all-world multi-sport athlete at Boston University when they played major sports. And he was called the Golden Greek. And he came down with pneumonia. He was 25 years old. He came down with pneumonia. He was hitting over 300. That was in his second year, and he died from a pulmonary embolism.
Oof.
I went to school. I went to school up there, and there are buildings named after him. He was quite a He was quite a famous alum.
Yeah,
and a great athlete.
Another guy who I remember. I don't know if he died during the season, but I remember Jim Umbright.
Yeah, he had cancer.
With the Colt 45s.
Yeah, with Colt 45s.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a pirate.
They actually retired his number. I think it was number 45 or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
And of course, the ultimate was Lou Gehrig, and the other Hall of Famer that died from ALS was Catfish Hunter.
Yes.
Catfish was in his 50s, though, at the time, I think.
Yeah.
But I believe Catfish was also, he was a diabetic, too. And that was that kind of shortened his career.
Yeah, there was a bonus baby for the Orioles in the mid-50s named Tom Gastall, who died in a private plane crash. He was the pilot and the sole occupant. He was like 22 years old.
And for those of you out there that don't know what a bonus baby is, back in the day, what was the limit? 80,000 or 100,000?
No, it was anything, believe it or not, over 4,000.
Anything over 4,000.
They had to keep them on
and they had to keep them on. Anyone signed for over.
Yeah, this was 1953 through 1957, and the only 3 of them that turned out to be anything were Caroline Koufax and Killebrew.
So it was that archaic rule that they had to stay on the major league roster and never get to the minor leagues, which really hurt these guys.
Right.
Probably shortened Koufax's career because he wasn't in the minor leagues working where he should have been.
He was wild until 1961. He was wild most of the time.
And he was hardly used as well. I mean, Walter Alston would use him so infrequently that he never could get a rhythm anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. The story is that I believe Norm Sherry was the catcher, and they say that Koufax actually used to throw harder, and Norm Sherry told him to take a little off, and he took a little off, and he found some control, which is, you know, certainly makes a lot of sense. I mean, you know, I'll never forget. I think it was like 2 years ago. Me and my young son, we were at Yankee Stadium, and Chris Sale was pitching for the White Sox, and like all game, I mean, he dominated them practically the whole game. And then he got into, and he was throwing, you know, the clock was, you know, the radar gun was showing like 95. And then as soon as somebody got a couple of guys on base a little later in the game, I can't remember what innings, at least the seventh inning, and then he started to overthrow, not by a lot. The gun went up to 96, from 95 to 96. Every ball he threw at 96 was a ball. You know, he was, you know, he was just trying to pump it up. He was losing his command. So, you know, I'm sure there's something to that.
Yeah, a couple of ones in the 70s that were killed. Bob Moose was killed in an auto accident after the 1976 season. And
what about Danny Frisella?
Yeah.
It was in a dune buggy accident, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking about someone more recent, Nick Aidenhart.
Oh, yeah. He was a passenger in a car, I think.
It was the night after he had pitched his first game of the season for the Angels, and he was 22 years old.
Yeah, do you recall that there was a game that the Houston had where they started everybody, like 9 rookies at the end of one of their seasons? Joe Morgan was in that game, and I think Rusty Staub. It was in the first, second year of Houston. They were still Colts 45s at that time. They had a pitcher named Jay Dahl who started that game. He was killed in an auto accident at the age of 18 or 19. I think he's the youngest major league player ever to die.
I think we forgot about Darryl Kyle.
Darryl, yeah, he has that.
Yeah. You know, I tell you though, I'm like looking at this list on Wikipedia, and it's, you know, most of the deaths that have, let's say, come in the last 20 years have been car crashes. So many of them. So, I mean, Andujar Cedeno, 2000, a guy, you know, a couple of guys, you know, that were in Japan, car accidents, a guy from the Mexican League, car accident, Jose Oliva.
Mike Sharperson. Remember
Mike Sharperson?
The Dodgers.
Yes, he was from the Dodgers.
Second baseman of the Dodgers.
Then you had, what's his face? Oscar Taveras.
Yeah. This was killed by he was crossing the street in Detroit after he had done a card show, and he was killed by a car that a speeding car.
You got this guy, Cliff Young. He was a pitcher, wasn't, you know, not a much notoriety, but yeah, you got Sharperson, Chico Ruiz with an infielder. You know, you got Bob Moose, and a gentleman, 1977. The name isn't ringing a bell for me. Mike Miley. He was a short, young guy.
He was a football player. He was a football player at LSU.
I think the Angels.
Yeah, but he was a football player at LSU, guys. He was a really special. I remember he chose. I'm pretty sure this is the guy. He chose baseball over.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right. Yeah.
He was a terrific football player.
Josh Hancock.
About Louis Cardinals, a couple of years ago.
Mike Daw, outfielder. It's Brian Cole, the kid with he was a farmhand with the Mets. I mean, he was a top prospect.
Mike Daw's father played in the major leagues, and his father outlived him.
Yeah, it's and then of course you go to other sports as well. I mean, Drazen Petrovic. I know it was in the off season, but that set back.
That was a great car crash on the Autobahn.
Yeah, Willie Gallimore and John Farrington of the Bears in 1963.
Kelly Lindbergh of Myers.
Oh yeah.
And who is that kid? A linebacker with the Chiefs.
Derek Thomas.
Derek Thomas.
Derek Thomas.
Yes. And there was, there was another.
Jim Brewer was killed in an auto accident. The pitcher.
Yeah,
the one who
pitcher from the Dodgers.
Yeah, he was the one who's Billy Martin broke, and had to pay a lot of money to him during a ball game. He broke his jaw in a fight. And I think Bob Miller, the one who was with the righty that was with the Mets and the Pirates and was with the Dodgers, I think he died in a car accident also. And there was,
I mean, look at and Bill, even though it was it was even after his managerial career, but Billy Martin.
Yeah.
And rumor has it he was going to get tapped again by Steinbrenner to manage the team one more time.
Yeah, there was a pitcher on the Phillies in the 50s named Carl Drews, who was killed. He was changing a tire on the side of a highway, and another car came in and killed him.
Well, I tell you, even that, the Giants had a defensive end, Troy Archer.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you had Jerome Brown with the Eagles.
Yeah. And that thing with Alice, when the driver survived, it was either last year or the year before, the driver survived, and the passenger, they were both players on the Cowboys, and the passenger was killed. And they suspended the survivor for, whatever. It was just a year.
Jerry Brown? Was Jerry Brown one of the players?
Yeah. I think he was killed.
And then of course, you have in football, you got Brian Piccolo and Ernie Davis, who both died of cancer. Oh, you had Corey Stringer, who collapsed during training camp.
Changed a lot of rules because of that. The two-a-days are gone now since then.
Well, football is, I think of all the major sports, the football players are the most craziest. You have to be to play that game. You really do.
Their lifespan isn't all that long after they retire.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I don't know. What about hockey players? They, I mean, you know what? You don't have the pounding on every play. But I tell you what, I gotta say, talk about guys that play with injuries or go into a locker room and truly get sewn up like in between periods, and then come back out on the ice. I gotta say, they're pretty tough.
Yeah, it's only in the 60s that they started wearing helmets, and only in the late 50s that the goalies start wearing masks. So
they didn't even make helmets
before then.
They didn't even make helmets mandatory until 1979.
Yeah, because the one guy got killed.
You know who else died in a car crash? Steve Prefontaine. I just looked that up. Yeah. He's a young guy.
Now, there was a middleweight champion named Marcel Cerdan who lost the title to Jake LaMotta in, I think, the late 40s, and was flying back on a commercial flight for the rematch, and the plane crashed. Now, of course, you have Buddy Holly and Richie Valens and Big Bopper.
The day the music died.
Yeah. Yeah, they were at the... Buddy Holly was only 23 when that crash came. He was prolific.
JFK Jr.
Yeah. Well, he went up in a plane that with no instruments in terrible weather. I mean, it was a dumb decision, obviously.
Bit reckless.
So, okay, well...
Rocky Marciano died in a private plane crash.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So, well,
I want to focus on a positive, on something.
I was just about to say, you know what? I think we've depressed our audience.
Yes.
What I was going to say is that we all talked about Roberto Clemente's tragic passing, especially when he was doing great humanitarian work. But a little-known side fact was that a young pitcher from the Montreal Expos named Tom Walker was supposed to be on that flight too, but they didn't have enough room, and Roberto told him to stay home. And
Neil Walker.
Tom Walker, years later, we enjoy watching his son Neil play.
Yeah.
And Neil would never have been born if Tom was on that flight.
Yeah,
and he always thinks about that.
Yeah, I also had rumors that Manny Sanguine was supposed to be on that flight too.
Yeah, I mean, the plane was severely overloaded. It was just, it was just insane. So,
I woke up on New Year's Day to that news. First thing I heard on the radio was that, and I walked around like a zombie for a couple of weeks before I could really deal with it. So
it's just one of those things where you just shake your head like, no, this just like didn't happen. So
I think the Munson crashing really devastated a lot of people, especially I was a young teenager in New York at the time when it happened, and I was collecting for my newspaper route, and one of the kids was yelling out of his window that Thurman Munson died in a plane crash, and he was the type of kid that would like tease you about stuff. So I thought he was joking, and I was like, oh, stop joking, stop playing around. I probably said some things even nastier than that. And then he says, no, come in my house. And I came in his house, and I was watching it on TV. And I'm not even a Yankee fan, and I actually had tears coming down my eyes from it.
I remember how I got the news. I tell you, I was, I don't know if Craig grew up upstate. Mark, I don't know if you remember this. I know Alan would probably remember. Do you remember the yellow tow trucks that used to, drive for the body shops in New York City that we used to race to the accidents? So
the chaser trucks.
Exactly. That's what I did for a good part of the 70s. And I'll never forget, I was working at Perry's Auto Body, and we had two-way radios, and on our band we had a few other local shops on the area. And I'll never forget it. The dispatcher from another shop, his name is Richie Atkins. I'll never forget it. It came right out. It was the afternoon. He goes, Thurman Munson was killed in a plane crash. And it was, again, the same reaction, like shaking your head, like wake me up out of this dream. And, immediately turned on the radio and, and got the news. It was like, you're like in disbelief. I probably remember that more distinctly than than when my mother met me at school the day that JFK was killed.
Yeah, I was in college. That happened. Man, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. Everybody was.
Sorry, guys, I got nothing on that. I was 2 years from being born.
That's okay.
Yeah, two of the icons of the 1950s died fairly young. In fact, somebody put up on one of the Facebook sites someone pictures of, it was unintentional, but they put up pictures of Gil Hodges and Nellie Fox, and both of them passed away when they were 47. Hodges from a heart attack, and Fox had melanoma, died in 1975. I says I put down that both of these men were gone too soon. Hodges
I mean,
was a tremendous shot.
And the thing is, and even though like Hodges wasn't a player, but he was like, he was the manager of the Mets. Then they had just won the World Series. I mean, he was a great manager, and it was just the beginning of his manager.
Seaver never fails to give Hodges credit for his success.
Seaver always said that Hodges taught him professionalism.
Yeah.
So okay, so we're gonna try to let's transition into we got a few minutes left. Let's transition, and I mean I guess you know what the Mets.
I was gonna hit Alan with a trivia question.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, since I figured once we answer this question, we can transition away from untimely player deaths. And the question I was going to ask him was the day that the Yankees played the first game after they buried their captain. That was the game where one of his best friends, Bobby Mercer, hit the game-winning double.
Yeah.
Who was the guy who replaced Munson on the plate? And I use the term replace just because he played behind the plate as catcher, but no one replaced Thurman Munson.
Rick Cerrone?
No, Cerrone came in a trade in '80.
Jerry Narron?
Jerry Narron,
yeah.
Do you remember what they did during the national anthem?
Yeah, they had the home plate vacated.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I have a question. Was the next game that game? Like, did they? So he died like on August 2nd.
Yeah.
It was an off day.
It was an off day.
He was going home to tried to go home to visit. To visit, and the story was that some
he was
practicing.
He was practicing takeoffs and landings.
Yeah, and Peter Goldenbach said when I was on with him and Ralph on Sunday that Munson had traded in his old plane, which was very safe and tested, for this new one because it would get him to see his family in Canton half an hour sooner. And
all the teammates
on the plane with him when the plane crashed, the two other people that were on the plane with him survived.
Wow.
And his teammates said that plane was just too much plane for him, and they begged him not to buy it, not to fly it.
All right, so he dies on an off day. So the next game was a game that was on ABC against the Orioles.
I remember watching that on television. Yeah.
I remember watching that one too. That was I think it was a Friday night, was it?
Yeah.
Wow. And I know Mercer had all 5 RBIs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hit a home run and
Mercer back from the.
I think that double was a line drive down the left field line.
Yeah. Yeah, Mercer came over from the Cubs earlier in that season. He wasn't there in '78.
No, because they had traded him originally to the Giants after the '74 season.
Yeah, because
for Bobby Bonds.
He couldn't hit in Shea.
He went from a 30 home run season to like a teens type.
Yeah,
of season.
I was living in Forest Hills back then. I went to between the Mets and the Yankees those 2 years. I must have gone about 60 games a year. Those 2 years that they were in Shea. And he didn't like Shea at all, so they shipped him to the Giants for Bobby Bonds, excuse me.
Bobby Bonds, yeah.
And then,
but then they shipped Bobby out after 1 year and got Mickey Rivers.
Well, Bobby made the rounds after he left the Giants. He
was done every year.
Yeah,
not only did they get Mickey Rivers, they also got Ed Figueroa, who won 20 games for them.
Yeah, and the Giants sent Mercer to the Cubs for Bill Madlock because even though Madlock had won 2 batting titles, he wanted a big contract from Phil Wrigley, and Wrigley supposedly was quoted as saying, "I'm not giving any black player that kind of money."
Ouch.
So they sent Madlock to the Cubs for Mercer, and that's where he was when the Yankees got him back in 1979.
And then he played with the Yankees until was it 82, 83?
Yeah, something
82.
like that. Yeah.
he was one of my favorites. I remember when he came up. I remember he hit 3 home runs in a game, and the back page of the Daily News said Mickey Mercer. I remember. That's another thing I'll never forget.
No, Tom.
Well, he came up as a shortstop too, just like Mickey.
Yeah. Yes, and also from Oklahoma.
Yeah,
correct.
Tom Tresh was when he came up. He was supposed to be the next Mickey Mantle.
And he had 2 or 3 really good years, and then he started to kind of fall off the
Roger
planet.
Repose, you remember that one when they started? They went into the bad years.
Repose, yeah.
That was during the Declinesty.
Yeah, another one is supposed to be next Mickey Mantle.
Nobody wants to get tagged with being the next Mickey Mantle, considering there was only one Mickey Mantle.
Yeah. Look, Mantle.
That might be the kiss of death to be called that.
Mantle came up, 19-year-old kid, hillbilly from Oklahoma, comes up here and he's supposed to succeed, DiMaggio, who was, an icon, tremendous icon. And he was under such incredible pressure. In fact, he was.
Well, they farmed him out in that first year. They sent him down to Kansas City. Yeah,
he was 4F because of his osteomyelitis. He was kicked in the knee in a football game in high school, and they call him communist and draft dodger the first few years. It was really, really awful.
I mean, rumor has it that he was booed a lot in Yankee Stadium, especially when he struck out.
Oh, yeah.
And really the cheers only started once Maris came on board, and when they were both fighting to break Ruth's record.
Well, I went to a few games in 1959, which is that they were 79-75 that year. They were terrible. And Mantle probably had his worst season since his rookie year. They were bullying him constantly, and they were, the Yankee fans in those days. I mean, losing a World Series was a disaster, let alone not getting into it.
Well, that was the Go-Go Sox won the pennant.
The Yankees were terrible that year. Then they, shipped a couple of bodies to the A's for Barris, and then things turned around.
Well, that's right. They made some great lopsided trades with their unofficial farm team in Kansas City.
Exactly, yeah. They sent Hank Bauer, who was at the end of his career and wanted to go back to Kansas City because he lived there, and Norm Seaburn, Don Lawson, who was at the end of his rope, and the ever-popular marvelous Mark Throneberry.
There must have been some cash under the table there. There has to have been.
The whole thing where
Wasn't Arnie Johnson, who was the owner of the A's at the time, was also a part owner of the Yankees, and they talked him into buying the A's, and they basically treated it as like a quadruple A farm team until he passed away, and then Finley purchased it.
Yeah, he also owned Yankee Stadium, Johnson, for a while. He sold it to the Knights of Columbus, I think. But there's a book that came out a few years ago discussing the other half of the Yankees, and the book was totally discussing the whole relationship between the Kansas City A's and the Yankees.
Total collusion.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Clete Boyer came that route too.
Yeah, so Ralph
Hector Lopez.
Yeah, Ralph Terry was also Terry and Boyer were farmed out there. They got.
I mean, how good is that?
The Yankees got him back.
How good is that? You let your guys get their minor league experience playing in the major leagues for another franchise, and then purchase them when you need them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was really something. Yankees sent basically all their dead wood. Another one that they sent and came back was Slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
They decided in 1956 that Slaughter wasn't quite through. So they got, I don't know if they bought him for waivers or however it worked, but they got him back. But anytime they get broken down pitchers, they had a lot of broken down pitchers during that era, because you had Whitey Ford from 1955 on. You had Whitey Ford as a constant, and everybody else had 1 or 2 years. And they would send when these guys would break down.
The Sturdivants of the world and the Grimms of the world.
Yeah, Cooks.
The Cooks.
They all wound up on the A's. They all wound up on the A's.
Well,
wasn't the joke that before Arnie Johnson took over the A's, that Kansas City was officially the Yankees AAA farm team?
Oh, yeah,
and then when he bought the team from from the Mack family and moved it to Kansas City. They became the unofficial Yankee AAA farm team.
Yeah, the Yankees moved the Kansas City farm team to Denver, and they rarefied air out there for 2 years. Bob Trollenberry became a superstar. There wasn't much different from Coors.
What do they say? It's like hitting zero gravity.
Yeah, a lot of hitting and no pitching.
Yeah.
Some things never change, but that's what they did, and the Yankees basically controlled the American League the way O'Malley controlled the National League in those years. And
gentlemen,
basically the Yankees' only competition was Cleveland in the 50s,
and the White Sox to some extent,
and the White Sox to some extent. That's true.
And Fort Frick spent 14 years saying that this is a league matter. Yeah, he wouldn't do anything. I mean, the only thing he ever did was as the commissioner was invent the asterisk.
Yes, because he was Babe Ruth's ghostwriter, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah. And what's really funny is that the next year, Maury Wills broke Ty Cobb's single-season steal record, and there wasn't any sort of a fuss on that, the way they made it about Maris the year before.
Well, I think probably because Babe's record was the cherished record in baseball.
Babe was loved and Cobb was hated.
and Frick had a personal relationship with the Babe.
Oh, yeah.
So, gentlemen, we've reached that time of the evening where we put an end to the show. Hopefully sometime soon we'll be able to go back to an earlier start, and we won't have to have an absolute time limit or close to one. But for now, it's bedtime here on the East Coast. So, Mark, I thank you for coming on. Al, thank you for coming on. We'll see you back next week. And Craig, would you like to take us out?
You can do that.
Oh, I can do that. Okay.
I just want to say I enjoyed this immensely.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, you guys.
I'd like to say thanks, Craig, and thanks, Wayne, for having us. Your guests wound up almost hijacking the show, but Wayne kept us in order.
No, you see, you got to understand something. If we like when guests hijack the show. If we have to pull teeth, then guess what? We didn't have the right guests. So
I can tell you, there's no dentistry needed when I'm on the line.
There you go. So,
thanks for coming on,
gentlemen. Thank you, everybody, for listening. All 10 of you. Who knows? Maybe it's up to 15. And we'll be back next week. Let's just to maybe pique a little interest. Next week, we're scheduled to have Dan Zimborski of ESPN.com. And although we'll be a couple of days into the playoffs, we hope to discuss, reflect, and project. So we'll see you all then. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.